Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott!
Hello everyone, and welcome to another interesting episode of Great Scott. I'm Scotty V. Good to see you. Thanks for watching. So recently, LatinoReview.com came out with a list of spoilers that were possible for the Man of Steel follow-up film, considering Lex Luthor, and now we know that it's Jesse Eisenberg playing the role. Now take these rumors with a grain of salt, as I'm sure you've already read them. First off, they started with Lex's head is bald, as we usually recognize Lex as having a bald head, but in their little write-up they say his head is shaved. In other words, he purposefully shaves his head. He's a street tough, he was in a gang, he has tattoos, a sleeve of the Metropolis skyline along his arm. This is interesting in a number of ways. Him as a street tough in a gang, meaning he was able to kind of handle himself, and he also, in this little blurb, supposedly takes over the gang within 1 year by the time he's 15, meaning that he uses his intellect and he uses his street smarts in order to do so, and in order to be the leader of an organization at that young age, which of course prefaces things to come when he becomes a leader of many, many organizations, crime and otherwise. But with the shaved head, that seems to indicate that maybe that was part of his initiation, or maybe he did it to look tougher, or maybe he did it to prove that he, it could be that he did it in front of the guys, or he made them all do it, or, they were kind of like skinheads or something. That I don't really love that idea. I like the idea of Lex going bald or becoming bald, but I don't mind him shaving his head. I kind of thinking about the implications of why he might have done it, because he was in a street gang and maybe they were skinhead toughs. I'm not crazy about that. But also in the write-up it says don't think of him as just a goon. He's very intelligent and he's a genius, and he can accomplish anything by the use of his mind. He's very ambitious and he's very capable. These things I love, and I've always loved these things about Lex. When his mind gets set, when he puts his intellect into motion, he can pretty much accomplish anything he wants, and I like that. Of course, they could have written that from anywhere. That's kind of a general Lex description. That's the kind of a person that he is. But he's also a self-made millionaire, billionaire, business owner, which is different than the last few Lexes we have seen, where he's either stolen it from, like Gene Hackman in the original Superman movies. It was never really explained where he got his wealth from. He was just this guy living under the city. And then the continuation of that with Kevin Spacey, he was robbing some old lady of her money. This isn't really the Lex that I like. I like a Lex who's capable and is able to get things done in order to, like a Donald Trump has gone bankrupt many, many times. Walt Disney bankrupt many, many times, but still made themselves millionaires by doing the things that needed to get done and using their ideas and using their mind, their imagination, in order to accomplish things that needed to be accomplished. Bruce and Lex are not friends in this movie, according to this little write-up, which is good, but Bruce goes to see Lex because he's interested in helping. I don't know that he's interested in helping, but he's interested in the tragic circumstances that happened in the city, according to this article. And from Bruce's point of view, some things need to be done, and maybe some philanthropic work. Kind of a normal thing for Bruce Wayne to want to use his money to help others, and that could be something that he's doing there. While on the other side of the coin, Lex is looking to see how many businesses he can start, how many people he can employ, and what kind of profit he can gain from this. At least that's what this says in the write-up. I understand this in one way, because that's Lex's ultimate goal in the end, almost any time you look at Lex. But I think he also has always cared about Metropolis from the point of he wants to run it. He wants to be the guy who has control of everything. He wants the power, but he also thinks of it as his city. He was there. He kind of made it. He's responsible for a lot of the jobs in the city, a lot of the buildings, a lot of the projects, a lot of the things that go on, depending on the version, a lot of the scientific discoveries, and a lot of the information comes and goes through Lex. So I think he looks at it as kind of like his project and his thing, but at the same time he's ruling it in a ruthless sort of way in a lot of versions. I like that this Lex seems to be different from the one from Smallville in that he's not a trust fund baby, which is the way they say he views Bruce, because Bruce inherited his money and didn't have to do anything to get it. His parents died and he became rich. That's kind of the way it was in Smallville. He was this secondary guy. Lionel ran the company and kind of made fun of Lex and everything, and the idea was that Lionel was so bad and so tough on Lex that that's what eventually drew him to the dark side, and then he eventually kills Lionel and all the money is his, even though he was running a lot of the company and he had access to the funds, he wasn't really the guy who had made it what it had been. Lionel was the guy, so Lex was this guy who just took advantage and took over in the end. Some of these ideas sound much better to me than going that route, the route of spoiled brat kind of guy who wants things that maybe aren't his. Lex in this write-up considers Superman an alien trespasser in his city and on Earth, and wants to figure out what's going on there and probably defeat him in some manner, although it doesn't say that there. And according to this, Bruce finds Superman impressive and wants to come to the city in order to look into the alien as well, but from a different standpoint, a standpoint of that he is an impressive kind of hero, I guess. It doesn't say anything about Bruce knowing him as a hero or thinking of him as a hero, but thought he was an impressive specimen. That was the quote. I like a lot of these ideas. Many of them do sound like stretches as far as the shaved head and the tattoos, a street tough in a gang. Some of that stuff could work, though, if he was out on the street. It kind of harkens back to some of the 80s stories, or earlier than that even, where Lex was kind of on the street and poor, and his parents were alcoholics or whatever, and he eventually gets free of them and makes his own destiny, and wrong side of the tracks kind of thing, from rags to riches. It reminds me of Jimmy's speech in the first episode of Lois and Clark, where he's talking about they're gonna see Lex for the there he is. They're in that little thing where he's going to give the speech to the UN about the space station Prometheus, and Jimmy's all excited about seeing this rich guy who was a kid like him once and somehow made his destiny and made himself a billionaire. Hearing about this story of Lex Luthor from the wrong side of the tracks, who was able to build his own destiny, can be inspiring to a young kid, which can also be a problem because, as we all know, Lex is nefarious and evil. But according to Snyder, he's going to have a depth to him that we haven't seen before, and that's the reason he cast Jesse Eisenberg, because he can really show us a deep Lex Luthor, a Lex Luthor with a backstory, which I hope we get to see. And some of what LatinoReview.com wrote could come into play, I suppose, but I'm not really sure how these rumors would have gotten out, and probably none of them are going to be exactly true, but they are kind of leaps that you could make or ideas that you could have and write up on your own. And of course, people talking about them and posting them on their own websites gives Latino Review and other sites like that more publicity and more press, which is, of course, what they want. But I do like some of these ideas, so good job, guys. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and remember, always look up in the sky.